Today I am working on my 1991 Toyota Land Cruiser, the beautiful 80 series, and we're replacing 3 V-belts, the fan belt, the AC belt, and the steering pump belt. If you notice really closely there, that belt right there, that power steering belt, is definitely chewed up and we need to replace that. I saw significant wear on 2 of my belts, and because they're fairly cheap to replace, I'm going to go ahead and replace all 3 of them. All right, let's get started. Before we begin, I want to make a couple recommendations. First off, make sure you have the correct belts. Make sure they are the direct replacement belts for your Land Cruiser. I called several places and all of them gave me the wrong belt. So I was forced to wait a couple days to get the correct one, which is not a big deal if it's not your daily driver. The next thing I'm going to say is get yourself some nice disposable working gloves, mechanics gloves like these. They don't have to be fancy, and a long sleeve. You're going to be fitting your hands and wrists through some really tight spaces. Your hands are going to be tired after the constant rubbing of the fan and the fan belts and the fan shroud. So just keep that in mind. Give yourself plenty of time to do this project. If it's your first time like it was mine, don't rush it. Make sure you have the right parts, the right tools to do it, and that way it'll go a lot smoother. I've made a lot of mistakes trying to rush certain projects, and it's much better when you're patient and you're well prepared. All right, we're going to get started with the Smog steering pump belt. This is the belt that is furthest away from the engine, and this is going to be the easiest to detach. We're going to start with loosening the 2 bolts, one right here and the other one over here, with a 14mm wrench, and you're going to push down on it like so. Once you push down on it, you'll have enough slack to actually slip off the belt. If you notice the diagram from the field service manual, you'll see the power steering belt goes from the power steering to the air pump, down to the alternator, and then the crankshaft pulley. And lastly, this idler pulley here. Just keep that in mind when you're putting everything back together. You might notice here that my fan and my fan shroud are gone because I took those out. Since I was going to replace these belts, I decided that I was going to also replace my fan clutch. I have a video on my channel on how to replace the fan clutch also if you want to check that out. But for the purpose of this video, since we're just doing the belts, all you'll need to do is weave the belt around the fan, and you should be fine. You don't need to replace or remove the fan and the fan shroud. The next one is the fan alternator belt. To loosen this, you're going to loosen up this lock bolt here, and on the other side, to the side of it, to the right, you're going to find another bolt that actually adjusts it. So you're going to loosen that as well, and you're going to be able to drop the alternator a little bit, move it around so you can actually take out that belt. And as you can see from the field service manual, it goes from the fan pulley to the alternator, down to the crankshaft, up back to the fan. The third and final belt was the one that I had the most trouble with. It was the hardest to find where I could actually loosen it up, and I had to read through tons of forums to actually figure it out. But anyways, here it is. Let's use the field service manual for reference. Don't get too caught up in the layout, just the purpose. So we have the AC belt where the AC pump is. It goes to the idler pulley down to the crankshaft. Now the field service manual is a little confusing because it shows the idler pulley at the top, but it's actually not. It's at the bottom. I'm going to try my best to explain this. If you follow the AC belt down to where the idler pulley is, there's going to be a lock nut on the pulley. You're going to loosen that up. And right next to it, if you see here, you're going to loosen this bolt up as well. And that will easily move to the side, and then you could slip everything off. I had to actually get on my back under the car to get to it because it was hard to reach, but it's possible. Perfect. Now that we have all the belts taken off, we can put them all back together and tighten them in the reverse order. All right, now we're going to install the AC belt back on. So just like we did before, but we're going to do it in reverse. I already have the belt already fitted on, and now we need to tighten it. We need to give it some tension. So we're going to first tighten up this bolt right here. And then once it's tightened and we have enough tension, then we can tighten the lock nut on the pulley. All right, the next belt that we had to install was the fan alternator. So as we know, it goes from the fan to the alternator down to the crankshaft. And if you remember, we had to first loosen this bolt up and then the bolt that's on the other side to loosen it up. So we're going to do reverse. First, we're going to tighten the bolt that's on the other side. This is kind of the trickiest one to find, so I'm going to kind of show you exactly how I'm looking for it. It's right there on the other side. And if you just follow it to the front of where the alternator is, first you're going to tighten that one, and you follow it to the front of the alternator. As you can see, it kind of comes out across, and that's the other side. Awesome. So now we have 2 belts down. 2 of the hardest belts to take off are down. Our final belt is the power steering belt, and that one is the easiest to put back on. As we remember, we wrap it around the crankshaft pulley, then up towards the air pump, and then over to the power steering pump. And so once that's wrapped up, we tighten up both of the bolts that we loosened up a bit with a 14mm wrench, and we're good to go. Before we wrap up this video, I really want to show you the before and after of how my belts looked and how they look now. Check this out. Alright guys, that's the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it helpful and informative, and I hope maybe you learned something today. I'm going to put some links in the description as far as part number goes for the exact part number for the 3FE engine of the FJ80. So let me know if that's helpful as well. Thank you.